Hello, this is Destridgnir, and once again I'm reading from the Thousand Nights and One Night. However, you must know that this giant tome of tales holds many adult themes like alcohol and rape and incest and necrophilia and a whole bunch of other stuff. So what you hear tonight probably don't exercise in person. And these tales are for amusement, and some of them are allegory, and so on and so forth. And I'm rambling. So this is the end of my disclaimer, and I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoy reading this to you. And when the fifth night had come, Shahrazad said, "It is related, O auspicious king, that King Yunan said to his vizier, 'You have let envy steal into your heart, my vizier, against this good physician. You are so desirous that I should kill him and then repent, as King Sinbad repented after he killed his falcon.'" "How did that come to pass?" asked the vizier. So King Yunan began. The tale of King Sinbad and the falcon. They say there was a king among the king of Fars who was a great lover of sport, of riding through the great gardens, and of all kinds of hunting. He had a falcon which he had trained himself, and which never left him by day or night. For even during the night he carried it upon his fist, and when he went hunting and coursing took it with him. He had also a little cup of gold hung from her neck, at which she used to drink. One day, as he was sitting in his palace, his chief falconer approached him, saying, "King of the ages, the weather is just right for hunting." The king made ready, and, taking his falcon, set out with a great company, and came at length to a valley where they spread the hunting nets. Suddenly a gazelle fell into the nets, and the king said, "I will kill him who lets her pass." Then they began to narrow the hunting net about the gazelle so that she came near the king, and, standing on her hind legs, brought her forelegs close to her chest, as if she was to salute him. On this the king clapped his hands to frighten the gazelle, and she leapt over his head and fled far away over the plain. Turning to his huntsmen, the king saw them winking at each other, so he asked his vizier why they were winking. The other answered, "I think they are reminding each other of what you said, and that you would put anyone to death who let the gazelle pass." Then the king cried out, "By my life, we must follow this gazelle and bring her back." So he galloped at full speed on her track, and when he came up to her, the falcon struck her above the eyes with his beak, blinding and bewildering her, and the king took his mace and rolled her over with one blow. Then he dismounted to disembowel and flay the animal, and afterwards hung the carcass on his saddle-bow. By this time both the king and his horse had become faint from thirst, the day being very hot and the place a dry waterless desert. But chancing to look around, the king saw a tree, down whose trunk water was falling as thick as butter. The king, who had his hands covered with leather gloves, took the cup from the falcon's neck, filled it with this water, and placed it before the bird. But the falcon hit the cup with its claw and knocked it over. Again the king filled it, and, still thinking that the bird was thirsty, placed it before him, but the falcon knocked it over a second time. Then the king became angry with the bird, and, filling the cup a third time, held it out to his horse, but the falcon fluttered toward and knocked it over with his wing. "Allah entomb you, you ill-omened bird!" cried the king. "You have prevented me from drinking, and the horse also, to say nothing of your silly self." So he struck at the falcon with his sword, and cut both her wings. Then the falcon lifted her head up, as if she were saying by signs, "Look into the tree." The king looked up and saw into the tree a knot of serpents, dripping their venom-like water down the trunk. Seeing this, he was sorrowful for what he had done, and, mounting his horse, rode back to his palace. Arrived there, he threw the carcass of the gazelle to the cook, telling him to prepare it. Then he sat down, still with the falcon on his hand, but no sooner had he done so than the bird gave a sob and fell dead. At this sight the king uttered a cries of lamentation and repentance that he had killed the bird who had saved him from a frightful death. This is the tale of King Sinbad. When the vizier heard the tale of King Yunan, "Great dignified majesty," he said, "what evil have I ever done that has so sad an ending? Only out of love for my king have I spoken as I have. Later you shall see the truth of my words. Hear me, and you are saved. Regard me not, and I fear that you'll perish, as perished a certain treacherous vizier who harmed the son of a king." The tale of the prince and the ogress. This king had a son much given to hunting and coursing, and he also had a vizier whom he had commanded to accompany his son wherever he went. On one day the prince went out to hunt and course, taking his father's vizier with him, and both as they went saw a miraculous beast rise in their path. The vizier, who knew what manner of thing it was, yet shouted to the prince, "Forward, forward, after this noble beast, and take her!" So the prince rode after the animal until it disappeared from view somewhere in the desert, and the prince was at a loss, not knowing which way to go, until he saw a young girl weeping above the track which he followed. He asked her who she was, and she answered, "I am the daughter of one of the kings of Hind. While I journeyed over the desert with a caravan, sleep overcame me, and I fell from my beast without anyone noticing. Now I am lost and alone and very sorrowful." When the prince heard this, he pitied her, and, setting her on his saddle-bow, rode away with her. As they were passing a little deserted ruin, the girl said, "Master, I must obey a call of nature." She went down into the ruin, and the prince, after waiting and noticing that she was taking longer than was natural, went in after her without attracting her notice, and behold, she had become an ogress and was saying to her brood, "Today, my dears, I have brought you a fine fat youth." On this they shouted, "Bring him in, mother, bring him in, that we may eat our bellyful." When the prince heard these terrifying words, he gave himself up for lost. His muscles relaxed for very terror, and he crawled from the ruin. When the ogress came out in her turn, she noticed his fear and trembling, and said, "Why are you afraid?" He noticed that he had an enemy, and the ogress asked, "Did you not tell me that you were a prince?" "That is true," he replied, and she continued, "If you are a prince, why do you not give your money to your enemy and satisfy him?" "You would never be satisfied with money," answered the prince. "Never, I fear, with anything but my death. Thus it is I go in fear of my life, and am the victim of an evil chance." To this she said, "If that is so, you only have to ask the help of Allah against your enemy, and he will save you and deliver you from the malice of those you fear." Then the prince lifted up his head and prayed, saying, "O thou, who answerest the oppressed when they call upon thee, give me to triumph over my enemy, and in thy might remove him from about my way." When the ogress heard this prayer, she disappeared, and the prince, returning to his father the king, told him of the evil counsel of the vizier, and the king put the vizier to death. After this tale, the vizier of King Yunnan continued in these subtle terms, "But I fear, O king, that if you put your trust in this doctor, he will make you die the worst of deaths. Even while you cover him with favors and make him your friend, he is plotting your death. Do you not see why he has cured your illness from the outside of your body by means of a thing to hold in the hand? Do you not see that it is simply that he may later cause your death with another thing held in the hand?" "Indeed, what you say is true," agreed Yunnan. "Let all be done as you advise, O vizier of good counsel. It is more than likely that this doctor has come in secret as a spy to cause my death. Since he has cured me with a thing held in the hand, what is to prevent him killing me with some other thing, perhaps some scent that will give me to smell? What should I do, O vizier?" "Send someone to fetch him at once," answered the vizier, "and when he comes, have his head cut off at the neck. Only thus can you put a stop to his evil plans and be carefree as you were before. Strike before he strikes, that is my advice." "You have spoken well, O vizier," said King Yunnan, and he sent to fetch the doctor, who came quickly and cheerfully, not knowing what the compassionate had in store for him. A poet has written these verses: "Go on your way and be comforted, child of the faithful. He who has molded the world in his hands holds it and us in his hands forever. What he has written you cannot alter. What he has not written never shall be. So go on your way and be comforted, child of the faithful. I keep the sweetness of my voice to sing to him. I make my fairest verses in his praise. Rare and more rare fall his gifts about me, granted before I have the wit to ask them. His kindness to me is greater than I can bear. My voice is not sweet enough to sing of him, and my verses are too little to hold his praise. Walk on light-hearted, caring and carrying nothing, leaving all to him. For fear not what man may do, grieve not at sorrow, especially plan not, for he has planned all things. Walk on light-hearted, caring and carrying nothing, leaving all to him." When Rayan, the physician, presented himself before the king, the latter asked him, "Do you know why I have sent for you?" And the physician answered, "None knows the unknown, save Allah." Then they said the king, "I have sent for you that you may die." At these words Rayan was struck as by thunder, and exclaimed, "Why should you kill me, O king? What harm have I done?" "They say you are a spy, and you have come here to kill me," answered the king. "Therefore I will strike the first blow." Then, raising his voice, he cried to his executioner, "Strike through the neck of this traitor, and rid me of these wiles." "Spare me, and so Allah shall spare you," cried the unfortunate doctor. "Kill me not, lest he also rise up and slay." He cried this prayer again and again, O Ifrit, just as I did with you, and you had no mercy upon me, but continued hot for my death. King Yunnan said to the doctor, "Never will I have trust or peace again until I have killed you, for if you killed me with a thing held in the hand, doubtless you would kill me with a thing to smell, or in some other way." "Is this how you reward me?" asked the doctor. "Is this how you return me evil for my good?" But the king said, "You must die, for there are no two ways about it." When the physician saw that the king was resolute for his death, he wept and repented bitterly for all the service he had done to those not worthy to receive them. Bearing on this subject, the poet said, "Although Munamain was a fool, her father kept the golden rule. He had a torch to guide his feet through all the perils of the street." After this, the executioner advanced, bandaged the doctor's eyes, and, freeing his blade, asked leave of the king. But the doctor continued to weep and to reiterate, "Spare me, and so Allah shall spare you. Kill me not, lest he also rise up and slay." Also, he intoned these lines of the poet: "Fools take the prize and cruelty lives on, while wisdom dies and kindness is undone. If I come free, I'll swear to change my ways and practice ignorance and cruelty through all my days." Then he said to the king, "Is this my reward? You are treating me after the manner of a certain crocodile." Then the king asked, "What is this tale of the crocodile?" And the doctor answered, "Indeed, indeed, I cannot tell you tales while I am in this sorry state. I conjure you by Allah, save me, and so shall Allah preserve you at last." Then he began to weep again, very sorrowfully. At this point, some of the king's favorites rose and said to him, "Spare, we beseech you, O king, the life of this great and good physician, for we see no fault in him against you. But rather have we seen him cure you of an evil which neither doctors nor sages were able to touch." But the king answered them, "You know not the reason of this doctor's death. If I spared him, I should myself be lost, for he who has cured me by a thing held in the hand might well kill me by giving me something to smell. Also, I fear that he would kill me for some reward set upon my life, for he is probably a spy, come here for no other reason but to kill me. His death is necessary. I shall have peace again." Then the doctor called out again, "Spare me, and so shall Allah spare you. Kill me not, lest he also rise up and slay." Now know, O Ifrit, that when the physician was finally certain that the king would kill him, he said, "King, if my death is really necessary, at least allow me a delay for going down to my house. I must put my affairs in order, instruct my family and my neighbors to arrange my funeral, and above all, I must give away my books of medicine. Also, now that I think of it, I have indeed a book that is the extract of extracts, the rarity of rarities in science, and I would offer it to you that you may keep it carefully forever among your chest of books." So the king asked him what this book might be, and he made answer, "It holds devices that are above price, the least of its secret being this: if, when my head is cut off, you turn 3 pages of the book, then read 3 lines upon the left-hand page, my severed head will speak and answer any manner of question." The king trembled with joyful amazement at these words, and said, "Doctor, is this true? Even if I cut off your head, you will speak?" "Indeed it is true, my king," he answered. "It is one of the prodigies of my science." After this, the king let him go down to his house between guards, and on that day and the next he wound up his affairs. When he came back to the Diwan, it was like a garden full of flowers, with the coloured cloths of the emirs, the viziers, the chamberlains, the nawabs, and all the chief persons of the kingdom. First the physician stood before the king, holding a very old book and a little coal box in which there was a powder. Then he sat down and said, "Let someone bring me a plate." A plate was brought to him, and he poured the powder on it, smoothing it over the surface with his fingers. Finally he said, "Take this book, my king, but do not use it until you have cut off my head. When my head is off, set it upon this plate, and you have it pressed down firm upon the powder to stop the bleeding. After that, open the book." But the king, in his haste, hardly listened to him. He took the book, and opening it, found the pages were stuck together. So he put his finger to his mouth, wetted it with his spittle, and succeeded in opening the first leaf. He did the same with the second and the third, experiencing great difficulty each time. When 6 single sheets had been opened this way, he tried to read, but could find no manner of writing in the book. "There's nothing written here," he cried, and the doctor answered, "Go on turning." So the king went on turning the leaves, but hardly had a minute passed when the venom, for the leaves of the book were indeed poisoned, began to work in the blood and body of the king. He fell back in terrible convulsions, crying, "Poisoned! Poisoned!" And Rayyan, the physician, addressed him, extemporizing these lines: "When the unjust judge without justice judges, horrible, horrible things are done, but more horrible things are done when justice judges the unjust judge." As Rayyan made an end of his verses, the king fell back dead. Learn from this, O you Ifrit, that if King Yunan had preserved Rayyan the physician, Allah would have preserved him in his turn, but he refused and brought upon his own death, and you, if you had wished to preserve me, Allah would have preserved you. At this point, Shahrazad saw the coming of morning and discreetly fell silent. Then her sister Dunyazad said, "How pleasant are your words!" "They are nothing," she answered, "to that which I would tell you tomorrow night, if I were still alive and the king wished to spare me." After this, they spent the night in complete joy and happiness until the morning. Finally, the king went up to his Diwan. Also, when the Diwan had risen, he returned to his palace and his people.